Well, we're getting the band back together, is how I call it, because it's Tom Hanks and myself, and we play a husband and wife over the course of like 70 years.
Wow.
So we're going to be in our 20s all the way up to our 80s. And it's Eric Roth, who adapted it, wrote the screenplay for Forrest Gump, and Bob Zemeckis, who directed Forrest Gump, is directing it. And we can't wait to see each other. It's been so long. It's been 29 years, I think,
wow,
since we made Forrest Gump.
Do you think that was one of the highlights of your career?
Without question.
Why is that?
To me, it's one of the most beautifully sentimental films without being sentimental. It's so pure of heart. And that character, Forrest, I think is basically a representative for what a beautiful heart means.
I think one of your most iconic roles to date for my generation, and people perhaps younger, is Claire Underwood, House of Cards. And that is because you went from First Lady to President, and you played that role so well to the point where I imagine you still have people shouting Madam President in the street.
Yes.
What is that like?
It makes me giggle. Because she was probably the most corrupt female president ever, yes, in fictional terms, but I mean, it was so operatic, that show. We couldn't top what was going on in DC. Like, we were struggling to find more darkness and more corruption for the arc of the show. And Washington just kept beating us.
What was it like for you going from, you know, being on a huge high with the program to then dealing with the fallout from, you know, the allegations against Kevin Spacey?
We just had to redirect the arc of the show. And that's what we did. We didn't have a choice because of the executive decision that the network made, because of the climate that was at that time. People just were getting on a bandwagon of, you know, following each other's decision morally to do A, B, and C. And so I was already an executive producer of the show and very much hands-on with the writers and with the producers, the development of the art. Because, you know, we never knew from season to season whether we were going to get picked up next year. So when you ended a season, you were kind of lying in wait for 4 or 5 months to see if our ratings were high enough, and then you'd get a call from Netflix either saying, no, we're done. So we always had 2 Bibles going at the same time, meaning if we're terminated, we're going to have to write the end of the show at the end of the season, but if we're getting picked up, where are we going to take it? So you either had to stretch it out or condense it. So we were always in that mode, no matter.
You are someone who took on the industry for equal pay and made a real big statement for a lot of women, especially in Hollywood. When you look back at that, was that a scary experience, something quite, you know, sort of intimidating for you at all?
No, because it just came out. I hadn't predicted that that would be a question posed. The truth came out, and everybody talks about it. This wasn't anything new. I think it's always a surprise to the public when someone they didn't expect to say that kind of truth exposes, and there's a shock value. And I got backlash just like every, you know, forward-thinking person or very direct person gets backlash too. So just say go with what you believe, and that's what I believe.
You had a stepfather who was from Cheshire, the north of England.
That's right. Yeah.
So you're obviously aware of what's happening in the UK in terms of the death of Queen Elizabeth II. A lot of people look at her legacy and they say she was a female leader who did a great deal for women. What does she mean to you?
Just that. She was an incredible leader. And I don't know as much as you know, but the quotes that she did make about perseverance and never giving up and never being the victim, basically. You can always help someone that doesn't have what you have.
One of your passions away from filmmaking is your social enterprise project that you've launched, and the story behind it is so inspirational. The fact that you are helping, deprived and vulnerable women. Can you give us a sense of what drove you to that and why you felt a need to go above and beyond to help those women?
I learned about the crisis in the Congo years ago, over 10 years ago. And I traveled to the Congo and I got to meet these women who are victims of rape, which is used as a weapon of war over there. And I got to hear their stories. And my final question to all of them before I left was, what do you want? What do you need? Because everybody can write a check. And then there's no real connection to what you're doing. You're not sure if that money is getting into the right hands, etc. And each and every one of those women said, we need you to be our voice because we don't have one here. And I made it my mission to come back to America and do everything possible to give them a voice, give them a platform to be heard. They are silenced, and we want to bring a voice to break that silence for them, and that's what Pour la Femme does, and why we're launching here tonight the Pour la Femme Foundation, because so many people want to participate in the expansion and the growth of these programs that Pour la Femme has helped provide.